The first clue that something was seriously off came just after sunrise, when I opened my barn door and was hit by a wall of artificial fog and glitter. Pink sequined curtains hung from the rafters like someone had mistaken my livestock shelter for a Vegas stage. A woman in stilettos was yelling at my pigs. "Stop moving. You're ruining the lighting," she shrieked, just as one of them clamped its teeth around the satin sash tied to her waist. At first, Brenda Caldwell didn't notice me standing in the doorway, stunned and half-dressed with a coffee mug in hand. But when she finally did, she waved a glittery clipboard in the air like a conductor and yelled, "Don't worry. We're almost done. Just needed a little rustic ambience." I stared at the chaos. There was glitter on my hay, camera lights strung up from my barn beams, and a girl, her daughter, I assumed, posing with a fake pitchfork while a photography crew stomped through my animal pen. I took a long breath, then calmly asked, "Did you just break into my barn?" She turned to me, smug and unfazed, and tossed her highlighted curls. "No, Eli. I elevated it. I'm Eli Morgan, 38, former architect turned homesteader. Bought this land 6 years ago in Ashford Pines, Oregon, 40 feet outside the HOA boundary, but apparently that offends Brenda Caldwell on a spiritual level. She's the kind of person who demands country authenticity and then files a complaint if your chickens cluck too loud. 3 days earlier, I was unloading bags of feed when she strutted down my gravel driveway in platform sandals, clipboard in hand. That clipboard always meant one thing: trouble dressed in Helvetica. "Eli," she chirped, "I need the barn Saturday morning. My daughter's getting engaged, and we need a backdrop with charm. You'll need to remove the pigs, of course." I blinked. "You want to use my barn, with actual animals in it, for a fake photo shoot?" She laughed, a high-pitched sound like a balloon deflating. "Of course not. We'll bring props. Don't worry, we'll tag you in the post." There's something about entitled people saying, "Don't worry," that makes me instantly worried. I told her as clearly and calmly as I could that my barn wasn't for rent, wasn't a studio, and most definitely wasn't hers. That's when she pulled out her favorite weapon, HOA jargon. "Under Section 4.3 of the Community Harmony Compact," she said, "I have the right to request use of shared aesthetic spaces for collective benefit." I glanced at my barn, on land I owned outright, long before the Ashford Pines HOA even existed. "This isn't shared," I replied, "and I'm not in your HOA." Her smile faltered. Her eye twitched. "You can't just live next to the HOA and pretend it doesn't affect you," she said. "This is about unity." I thought that was the end of it. I underestimated Brenda's flair for delusional escalation. The next morning, my mailbox overflowed with glossy flyers, rustic royalty, save the date. There, in pastel filters and cursive font, was a photo of my barn, taken from the road without permission, now part of a full-fledged engagement announcement shoot. I called her. "Brenda, what the hell is this?" Her voice oozed faux sweetness. "Oh, Eli, you should be thrilled. We're putting your barn on the map. Exposure like this is priceless. Besides, we already started renting outfits. By then, I had security cameras installed. Good thing, too. The night before the ambience shoot, my motion sensors picked up figures creeping through my property. I checked the footage. 2 men in black polos marked event staff were hauling in lights and removing my tools from the barn. Then came the jaw-drop moment, they unlatching the pig pen. I sprinted out there barefoot. By the time I arrived, they were gone. Left behind were tangled extension cords, a tripod, and hoof prints where they clearly tried to stage the place. My pigs were still in their pen, thank God. But the message was clear. Brenda wasn't just overstepping. She was staging a fantasy using my land, my animals, and my silence. That's when I stopped being polite. I started planning. But someone had clearly tried to stage the place. Lights were dangling from the rafters. My old feed buckets had been scrubbed clean and repurposed into flower vases. A bale of hay had been spray-painted gold. I stood there, debating whether to call the sheriff, but I already knew what Brenda Caldwell would say. It was a simple mix-up, or worse, an early arrival from the team. So I waited. Sure enough, just after sunrise, a black luxury SUV with chrome accents and the words Brenda Caldwell Productions etched on the side rolled up my dirt drive like it was a red carpet runway. Out stepped Brenda, heels digging into my gravel, megaphone in one hand, clipboard in the other. A full production crew spilled out behind her, hauling lights, makeup kits, floral props, and what appeared to be a grown man in a chicken costume who looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. I walked toward her, arms crossed, and asked, "How exactly did you get in?" "Oh," she said breezily, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. "We had someone prearrange access." Translation, she broke in. Again, I should have been livid. But something in me shifted. If she wanted rustic chaos, well, I had plenty to spare. As Brenda barked orders at her daughter, who was being posed between antique milk cans and faux hay bales, I quietly circled behind the barn and unlatched the pig pen. 12 well-fed pigs, curious and always up for an adventure, trotted straight into the barn like they'd been waiting for a cue. One immediately nudged the smoke machine. Another knocked over a ring light. By the time Brenda noticed, a snout was deep in her makeup kit, and 2 others were gently pushing her daughter into the actual hay. Brenda screamed, "Do something." I shrugged, sipped my coffee, and said, "You're the one who wanted rustic." What happened next was a glittery disaster in high definition. Brenda shrieked at the pigs. The pigs grunted and snorted, knocking over a makeshift fence and a velvet chaise lounge. Someone from her crew yelled, "Save the equipment," just before slipping on a trail of hay and landing squarely in pig manure. Brenda, ever the dramatist, climbed a haystack like it was the bow of a sinking ship. She waved her arms like she was conducting chaos, yelling about ambience. Meanwhile, her daughter, face flushed, crown tilted, shouted that she never wanted this barn or this fake engagement setup. I leaned against the doorway, watching it all unfold like breakfast theater. And then Brenda made her biggest mistake yet. She pointed at me and screamed, "You'll pay for this, Eli. I'll get the board to condemn this place. We'll take it from you." I didn't even blink. "Try it," I said. "But make sure you smile for the camera. You're being live-streamed." The moment froze. Brenda's face drained of color. What she didn't know was that I had installed cloud-connected surveillance after her last stunt. Every inch of her glitter-fueled barn invasion was being broadcast via a private YouTube link. Already with over 300 views, including one from my best friend Nina Tran, an environmental attorney with a serious bone to pick with HOA overreach. For the first time since she stomped onto my property in heels, Brenda looked genuinely scared. And I knew exactly what came next. Not retreat. Not apology. No, Brenda, when cornered, doesn't back down. She goes nuclear. Less than an hour after her dramatic meltdown, I received an email from the Ashford Pines HOA board with the subject line, "Urgent violation. Community disruption." The message was a passive-aggressive casserole of bold accusations claiming I had endangered neighborhood safety by allowing unsupervised livestock to enter a designated public event zone. Public event zone. She was now claiming my barn, the one on land I've owned for 6 years, 40 feet outside HOA jurisdiction, was shared property. My reply? 2 words, prove it. By noon, Brenda had staged a mini tribunal at the edge of my property. A folding table, 3 lawn chairs, and 2 frazzled board members flanked her as she sat like a suburban Game of Thrones villain, crowned not with power, but delusion. She passed out laminated packets with made-up legal jargon, photogenic right of use, barn aesthetic guidelines, and something called visual unification doctrine. A few neighbors wandered over, some out of curiosity, others out of concern. Brenda tried to sweeten the absurdity with syrupy promises, barn yoga, seasonal farm-to-table galas, even a candlelit harvest meditation session hosted in front of my rusted tractor. The problem was nobody liked her. And as she launched into a monologue about elevating property values through visual unity, I stood on my porch, sipping coffee in one hand, a donut in the other, watching her empire crack in real time. And we were just getting started. Brenda Caldwell was mid-sentence, dramatically gesturing toward my barn like she was unveiling the Eiffel Tower, when one of the HOA board members cautiously raised his hand. "Wait," he asked, squinting at the laminated nonsense she had passed out. "Do we even have the right to vote on his barn?" Without missing a beat, Brenda snapped, "Of course. It's within our visual perimeter." That was my cue. I tapped my Bluetooth speaker, and across the field boomed the crisp audio recording from the night before. Her voice, clear as a bell, saying, "Don't worry, we'll just sneak in." There was a pause. Her entire production crew had been trespassing, caught on tape. She froze. The board members exchanged glances, closed their folders like they were afraid of catching liability, and quietly stepped back. But Brenda wasn't finished. Oh no. That evening, I received a new official-looking envelope, this time from Animal Control. Someone had filed a complaint claiming I had endangered domestic animals and maintained unsafe enclosures. I didn't need a psychic to know who filed it. The next morning, a white county truck pulled into my drive. A man in worn boots and a dusty baseball cap stepped out, clipboard in hand. "You Eli Morgan?" he asked. "Got a report of pigs on the loose and suspected livestock abuse." I gestured toward the barn. My pigs were napping in fresh straw, under a misting sprinkler, with soft classical music drifting from a barn speaker. The inspector scratched his beard, glanced at my spotless setup, and said, "This looks better than most people's houses." He spent 20 minutes touring the space, petting the pigs, and asking about their diet. I handed him a cold bottle of water before he left. He gave me a signed form. Inspection passed, with commendation for ethical standards. But the best part? Brenda received a $300 fine for trespassing, disrupting livestock, and unauthorized event activity near animals. She stood at the edge of her lawn, fists clenched, yelling, "He weaponized pigs. Who even does that?" A teenager biking past shouted, "Apparently someone awesome." But Brenda wasn't done spiraling. The next day, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside were sepia-toned photos of a barn that vaguely resembled mine. She had sent a petition to the Ashford County Historical Office claiming my barn was a protected community heritage structure. She even forged a letter from the township historian. I could tell it was clearly typed in Comic Sans and looked like it was written in Microsoft Word at 2 a.m. In one photo, the barn door had a badly photoshopped Tesla logo on it. Classic Brenda. I called the county zoning office. By the next day, I got a call back from a rep who could barely contain his laughter. "Eli, we pulled your blueprints and survey maps. Not only is your barn not a heritage structure, it was built in 2017, and your name is on every permit." He paused. "Also, whoever submitted that petition is now under investigation for document fraud." I asked if I should be concerned. His reply, "Only if you're allergic to glitter and bad decisions." I figured that might finally be the end of it. But I had forgotten one important rule: never underestimate Brenda's capacity for reinvention. 2 mornings later, she appeared at my property line again, this time with a man in khakis and a pastel shirt, clutching an iPad. "I'm Ron," he said, "creative consultant for visual development. Translation, set designer." Brenda, still uninvited, dragged him along the edge of my property, pointing at trees, rocks, and even my rusted wheelbarrow. "This is where the rose arch will go," she announced. "And we'll need to move that tractor. It's too industrial." I leaned on the gate, arms crossed. "Ma'am, you are describing things that belong to me." Brenda turned to Ron and huffed. "See? He's being difficult. Like always." Ron paused, looking between us. "Wait, you don't have permission to be here." Brenda blinked. "It's an informal understanding." He nodded slowly, backed away, and said, "Yeah, I don't do lawsuits." Then he got in his Prius and left without saying goodbye. I thought that would be the storm's end. I was wrong. That night, I got a text from Nina Tran, my best friend, an environmental law powerhouse. She'd been following the entire saga via my private Livestream archive. Her message read, "Did you see her new Instagram story? You're not going to believe this." Spoiler, I didn't. Nina Tran was scrolling through the stream archive and casually messaged me, "Did you see her new Instagram story yet?" I hadn't. So I pulled it up and nearly dropped my phone. There it was. Brenda Caldwell's face in soft glam filter lighting, kicking off her brand new online campaign, Barn to Bridal, a socialite's vision. She spoke directly to camera, announcing an exclusive fashion and lifestyle gala set in a rustic luxury venue surrounded by nature's authenticity. Her venue? My barn. My land. My pigs. The story included a countdown, RSVP link, and ticket tiers. Standard admission, $75. VIP, $150, which included a photo op with real farm animals. I kept scrolling, stunned. Every photo was of my property, my fencing, my trees, even one of my pigs with a flower crown that she definitely stole from an old TikTok trend. She was literally selling access to a place she didn't own. Without telling me, I showed the page to Nina, who leaned back in her office chair, looked me dead in the eye through the video call, and said, "Oh, she's cooked. Keep your camera on. We're going to need all the footage." I didn't argue. Brenda wasn't just out of line. She was committing outright fraud, and I had every intention of letting her keep digging. That night, I locked all the gates, ran a full diagnostic on my security cameras, and adjusted the pigs' feeding schedule to match peak Brenda hours. The pigs, bless them, had become part livestock, part early warning system. They didn't like sudden movements, fog machines, or anything that smelled like influencer energy. And I could feel it in my bones. Brenda wasn't done. Not even close. Her desperation was starting to bloom like a weed through concrete, wild and overconfident. The next morning, I heard it, tires crunching over gravel. Through my window, I spotted a black SUV creeping down the driveway. Gold vinyl lettering across the sides read, "Brenda Caldwell, executive producer." She stepped out in a gold sequin blazer, clipboard in one hand, a pastel megaphone in the other. Behind her, a rented minivan unloaded a full reality TV crew. They carried lights, tripods, racks of costume dresses, a portable generator, and, God help us all, a fog machine. They were setting up with the precision of a studio shoot. On the wrong set. On my land. I opened the front door slowly, savoring the moment like I was stepping into a courtroom finale. Brenda spotted me instantly. "We're filming today," she declared, lifting the megaphone like it gave her rights. "Try to stay out of the shots, unless you're bringing snacks." I crossed my arms. "Try to leave before the cops arrive." She laughed, high-pitched, and rehearsed. "Eli, you're being so stubborn. This isn't just for me. We're creating something beautiful, rustic, yet aspirational." One of the crew, barely out of college by the look of him, approached me with a clipboard. "We just need a quick waiver sign, sir." I didn't even glance at it. I just pointed to the private property sign bolted above my barn door in 6-inch letters. "No contract. No permission. No access," I said plainly. He shrugged and turned back to Brenda, who was now adjusting a floral crown on a model posing like a milkmaid. I stepped back inside, grabbed my phone, and started recording. Again. An hour later, Brenda went live on Instagram. She stood confidently in front of my barn and beamed at the camera. "Welcome to the first day of filming Barn to Bridal, our pilot episode," she said. "We're bringing the city to the country, where love blooms in flannel." She introduced the cast, rattled off the storyline. Something about socialites discovering purpose through agriculture, and then panned the camera toward my barn. My pigs. My fences. My damn wheelbarrow. I sent the link to Nina. Her reply came in under 10 seconds. "She's toast. Screenshot everything. I'm sending this to my contact at the county permit office." I expected Brenda to back down the moment she saw me filming from the porch. She didn't. She doubled down. Later that afternoon, I found velvet ropes lining the gravel path to my barn. I kid you not, gold stanchions. Like we were hosting a red carpet premiere for a rom-com filmed in manure. The sheer audacity of it nearly made me respect her. Almost. I followed the rope down the path, passing a faux welcome table draped in linen. A clipboard with a guest list sat next to mason jars filled with rose petals and lemonade. This wasn't just a delusion. It was an event. On stolen land. And it wasn't over yet. Down by the barn, 2 girls in oversized cowboy hats were rehearsing lines about tractors and true love. Brenda Caldwell was pacing in circles like a caffeine-fueled director, shouting stage directions like she was remaking Gone with the Wind, only with more glitter and less historical accuracy. She turned, spotted me standing nearby, and had the audacity to wave. "I'm making your barn famous," she called out. "You're welcome." Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and hit record. Today on Brenda, the unauthorized musical, I narrated in my best documentary voice. Our lead character attempts to build a media empire using theft and delusion. I uploaded the clip to my private YouTube channel, where only a handful of friends, Nina Tran, and a couple of off-duty cops were following the saga. I figured having the law as witnesses might come in handy for the inevitable implosion. Later that evening, I heard a loud crash outside. I rushed out to find that Brenda had attempted to erect a decorative fence made of fake wood panels. One of her crew had accidentally rammed it with a dolly cart, causing the entire thing to collapse. A section of velvet rope fell into the mud, and the noise spooked 2 of my pigs, who, bless them, charged directly into the chaos. One pig nudged the fog machine, which hissed dramatically. Another went straight for the snack table and headbutted the tub of hummus onto the ground. A model screamed and leapt onto a hay bale, still in full makeup and wearing platform heels. Chaos erupted again, this time in slow motion and, unfortunately for Brenda, captured from 3 different camera angles. Brenda, sweating and flustered, clutched a microphone like it was a lifeline. "This is supposed to be a controlled environment," she screamed. Her assistant, clearly over it, handed her a napkin and walked away without a word. That's when I noticed a gray sedan parked just down the road. I didn't recognize it. A man in khakis stepped out, wearing a badge around his neck and carrying a folder. He approached calmly and introduced himself. "Mr. Carlton, Ashford County Planning Department," he said. "We got a tip about an unpermitted commercial production happening in a non-zoned agricultural district. Mind if I take a look around?" It was the closest I'd ever come to receiving a government visit that felt like a birthday gift. "Be my guest," I said, leading him straight to the barn. Mr. Carlton asked questions, snapped photos, and eventually turned to one of the crew members and asked, "Who hired you?" They all pointed to Brenda. She was in the middle of filming a candid moment with her daughter, who looked increasingly like she wanted to disappear into the hay. Mr. Carlton approached Brenda and asked to see her permit. "It's digital," she stammered. "Somewhere in my inbox." "Great," he replied. "Let's see it." She fumbled with her phone, swiped through apps, then tried to distract him with a highlight reel from her sizzle video. He wasn't buying it. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm issuing you a citation for illegal commercial activity and falsifying permit data. Also, you forged the landowner's signature." Brenda gasped. "That's ridiculous. Eli and I had an understanding." "Yeah," I said. "I understand that you're a lunatic." That night, I reviewed the footage over a video call with Nina. She laughed so hard she dropped her wine glass. "She brought a fog machine to a pig barn," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I can't tell if we should sue or sell this as a series." Not a bad idea. But Brenda wasn't done, not by a long shot. The gala she had been promoting, the one with $75 tickets and a fake influencer guest list, had not been canceled. Despite a citation and the looming threat of legal action, her event page was still live, RSVP counter still ticking. She had doubled down. According to Nina, most of the names on the RSVP list were clearly fake. Sock puppet accounts, bots, and a few unsuspecting yoga moms lured in by promises of a free cheese board. But Brenda was serious. And what she didn't know was that I had no intention of stopping her. In fact, I was counting on her to show up. Because if she thought a few pigs and a county official could stop me from protecting my land, she was about to get a masterclass in rural chaos. I was ready. Everything was in place for the finale. The traps were set. The cameras were rolling. All I needed was for Brenda Caldwell to show up, and she did not disappoint. The first guests arrived just after 10 a.m., trickling in via Teslas, matte black Range Rovers, and, somehow, 6 rented golf carts. They looked confused but committed, clutching pastel gift bags and following Brenda's directions like they were on a poorly designed scavenger hunt. The route led straight through the front gate of my property. The signs I had installed the night before read, "Private property, event in progress. Enter at your own risk," in friendly cursive. No one seemed to read it. No one noticed the pigs, either. An hour earlier, I had let them out after their usual breakfast of apples, oats, and molasses. They were roaming freely now, happy little pink landmines of chaos waiting for their cue. Brenda arrived fashionably late, of course. Her SUV screeched into the gravel like a runway finale. She stepped out slowly, one glittery heel at a time, dressed in what looked like a gown made from sheer curtains and craft store feathers. She held a bouquet of fake roses that shimmered unnaturally in the light. Her assistant followed close behind with a clipboard and a makeup bag the size of a carry-on. She looked over the crowd with a proud smile, completely ignoring the pigs now sniffing at the guests' designer shoes. One kid tried to pet a pig and got nudged gently into a puddle. His mom screamed. Brenda just called it immersive realism. I waited until she was mid-speech. She had gathered about 30 guests near the barn entrance and launched into a monologue about escaping the stress of urban life through curated rural elegance. Her arms stretched wide. Her voice echoed through a portable speaker she'd clipped to a hay bale. It was poetic. It was ridiculous. It was time. I pressed the button on a remote control in my pocket, triggering a pulley system I'd hidden behind the barn door. A bale of hay with a giant red bough rolled into the open field and stopped at Brenda's feet. Taped to the top was a laminated sign that read, "Congratulations. You're standing in the splash zone." She didn't even get to finish reading it. The next mechanism kicked in. A small spout connected to my apple mash fermentation tank released a syrupy stream of fermented fruit that sloshed into the pig pen. The pigs froze, sniffed the air, then charged. All 12 of them barreled out from behind the barn like furry wrecking balls. Ears flapping, tails wagging, snouts twitching. They hit the crowd in seconds. People screamed. High heels flew. One man lost his sunglasses. A full charcuterie board hit the dirt. Brenda shrieked and tried to leap away, but her dress caught on the decorative arch she had installed. She toppled backward into a bucket of paint, part of her art installation, with a sound like a wet balloon hitting pavement. Her assistant tried to help, but was immediately face-planted by a pig who mistook her handbag for a snack pouch. Chaos. Glorious, unfiltered chaos. People ran, slipped, yelled. The pigs tore through plastic floral arrangements and chewed on velvet ropes. Makeup smudged. Hair extensions were lost. And phones were everywhere, filming it all. Not just guests. I had invited a few special viewers of my own. 3 reporters from the local news station had shown up in boots, grinning like kids at a petting zoo. Nina had tipped them off the night before, and now one was live streaming the entire scene. Brenda screamed something about sabotage and livestock terrorism as she scrambled to her feet, looking like a glittery swamp creature. Then she saw me. She stomped across the field, dress dragging, paint splattered across her chest like war paint. "You ruined everything," she shrieked. This was supposed to be my brand launch. I shrugged. "Looks like you launched something." Straight into a pigsty. Her eyes widened like she might actually throw something at me. But then she spotted the news crew. Instantly, she straightened her posture, patted her soaked curls, and forced a smile. She opened her mouth to speak again, but it was too late. The internet had already decided her fate. "There's been a terrible mistake," Brenda Caldwell told the reporters, her voice breathy with rehearsed panic. "We were just filming a charity event when this man unleashed wild animals on us." One of the reporters, camera rolling, raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you charged $75 a ticket to film on land you don't own?" That was it. Brenda froze. For the first time, she had no comeback. No clipboard. No megaphone. No script. Just mud. Pigs. And the slow, dawning realization that her influencer fantasy had just collapsed in front of hundreds, maybe thousands, of viewers, live-streamed in real time. Her daughter, who had arrived late wearing what looked like a rejected prom dress, took one glance at the chaos and turned right back around, muttering something about never asking for this life again. Guests were leaving. Some furious, others laughing. A few actually paused to admire the pigs, snapping selfies and chuckling at the absurdity. The event had officially gone from fashion-forward to feral in under 10 minutes. And then, as if the universe wanted to give the moment a perfect exclamation mark, Marla Jennings arrived. She pulled up in a red pickup truck, stepped out in boots, and walked over with a folder under one arm. Marla had just been elected HOA president after the previous board resigned in disgrace. She wasn't here for photos. "Brenda," she said flatly, not even bothering with pleasantries, "we've received multiple complaints about this event. You violated at least 9 HOA and county regulations." She opened the folder, pulled out a stamped letter, and continued, "Your request for expedited relocation has been officially denied. Enjoy your extended stay in Ashford Pines." Brenda looked like she might faint. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. That evening, I rinsed the barn floor with a hose, humming as the last of the glitter swirled into the drain. The cleanup crew? The local 4-H kids I had invited as backup. They were still buzzing with excitement and had already given the pigs names like Fashion Killer and Hot Snout Chair. I handed out leftover props as souvenirs and promised them unlimited barn access for real events in the future. We lit a bonfire, roasted marshmallows, and projected the footage onto the side of the barn. Every laugh, every shriek, every outrageous moment played like the finale of a summer comedy blockbuster. Brenda didn't show her face for the rest of the week. Word spread fast online. She tried to rebrand herself as a misunderstood artist, but it was too late. The internet had already claimed her story. Clips titled "Pigs Crash Wedding Shoot" and "Brenda Goes Hog Wild" were everywhere. Someone even auto-tuned her screaming into a pop remix. By the following weekend, my barn was back to normal. The pigs were happy. The land was calm. And the glitter had finally stopped turning up in my coffee. Peace had returned. For about 48 hours. One morning, I checked my phone and nearly choked on my oatmeal. There I was, plastered across 5 different viral thumbnails. Headlines like "Farmer Unleashes Pigs on Wedding Shoot" and "Barnageddon" filled my feed. One image had a pig photoshopped holding a bouquet, standing in front of a burning barn. Someone had taken the footage and turned it into a short film, complete with dramatic music and slow-motion edits. It had over 2 million views. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or call a lawyer. So I called Nina Tran. She picked up and said, "Took you long enough." Apparently, someone had uploaded the footage to a shady content farm. But since my cameras had recorded everything, and I owned the originals, I had full legal claim. Nina had already sent takedown notices and, better yet, launched an official YouTube channel to post our version. Within 48 hours, our cut had 500,000 views. The comment section was filled with support, pig memes, and declarations like, "This is the content I signed up for." The story snowballed. A podcast invited me to talk about HOA abuse and farm life. A rural living magazine asked if I'd be their farmer of the month. And a novelty mug company pitched a collab. The first mock-up read, "Don't poke the pigs. Or the farmer." Yes, I ordered 10. But the biggest shock came in the form of an email titled, "Barn Flixic Opportunity." I thought it was spam until I saw the domain. It was real. A mid-level producer from a streaming service was interested in adapting the saga into a short-form docuseries. Brenda had wanted the spotlight. She got one, just not the way she planned. A producer from a streaming service had emailed me, interested in turning the story into a short docuseries. Apparently, outrageous HOA disasters were trending, and they wanted the full scoop. Brenda, the pigs, the gala, all of it. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted my land, my animals, and my peace. But the truth was, Brenda had created something so absurd, so wildly entertaining, that people couldn't stop watching. And if that attention helped expose how entitled and out of control some HOAs had become, maybe it was worth it. Before I could decide, another twist hit. Brenda Caldwell attempted a comeback. She reappeared online with an apology video, filmed in front of a sunflower field that looked suspiciously rented. Soft piano music played in the background while she blinked through what I'm pretty sure were pre-scripted tears. She said she'd been under intense pressure, claimed she had misread the tone of the community, and, my personal favorite, she announced she'd adopted a pig. I nearly choked on my coffee. The pig in the video looked like it had been rendered with CGI. And to top it off, she mispronounced the word agriculture twice. The comments were brutal. Viewers shredded her for faking sincerity, lying about her intentions, and flipping from entitlement to humility like it was a social media costume change. Someone dug up her original live streams, where she stormed across my property and edited a brutal side-by-side comparison of old Brenda versus rebranded Brenda. That montage went viral too. Brenda's reputation unraveled faster than one of her dollar store fences. Sponsors she had bragged about vanished from her bio. Her follower count tanked. She tried pivoting to a baking channel, but the only thing she cooked was a mess. Meanwhile, I decided to do something useful with the attention. I partnered with the local 4-H club and the Ashford County Animal Shelter to host an actual event at my barn, this time with real permission and zero fog machines. We called it Pigs, Pies, and Peace. It was simple. Pet the pigs. Eat homemade pies. Enjoy a drama-free afternoon. Families showed up with kids in tow. A few folks arrived in pig costumes just for fun. Local musicians played bluegrass, and laughter replaced glitter. We raised money for animal care, and for the first time in weeks, my barn felt joyful instead of chaotic. Even Marla Jennings came. She gave a short speech about restoring community values and poured apple cider for guests. She also confirmed, loud enough for everyone to hear, that Brenda's attempt to place my land under HOA authority had been officially declared null and void. The board had voted unanimously to amend the charter. No more shared visual perimeter nonsense. I shook Marla's hand and thanked her. She smirked and leaned in. If she tries anything else, she whispered, I've got the footage backed up twice. Nina Tran flew in that evening, never one to miss a good rap party. She brought a custom vinyl banner that read, Welcome to the pig pen, Brenda. We hung it across the barn and took a group photo beneath it. Me, Nina, the 4-H crew, and a pig in sunglasses. She also handed me a framed copy of the cease and desist letter we'd sent Brenda weeks ago. A trophy, Nina said, for surviving the wildest HOA meltdown in the county. I told her I'd hang it right next to my grandfather's antique shovel. He would have appreciated the chaos. As night fell and the guests trickled home, I sat on the barn steps with one of the pigs curled up beside me. The stars above were bright and quiet. For the first time in a while, there were no flashing cameras, no screaming, no sequins fluttering in the wind. Just me, the land, and the peace I'd fought to reclaim. That peace didn't last long. The next morning, I got a package from Brenda's lawyer. Inside was a letter claiming Brenda was suing me for emotional distress, brand defamation, and something called unauthorized pig deployment. I laughed for a full 5 minutes. Then I snapped a photo and texted it to Nina. Her response? Perfect. Now we counter. Between the footage, the forged documents, the trespassing, and the event ticketing fraud, we had enough to crush the claim and maybe launch a case of our own. Nina filed the dismissal motion and prepared a counterclaim. 3 days later, Brenda's lawyer quietly withdrew everything. It was finally over. For real this time. Months passed. The internet moved on. Brenda quietly relocated to a rental 2 towns over. Her social media presence fizzled out. And me? I built a second barn. Smaller. Cozier. Outfitted with a tiny theater room where we looped the chaos footage for visiting friends. The 4-H kids call it the pig flick room. It even has popcorn. I never needed revenge. Brenda handled that part herself. All I did was feed the pigs, keep the cameras rolling, and let the truth come out. In the end, it wasn't about pigs or barns, or even HOA madness. It was about standing your ground with dignity, knowing when to push back, and letting pigs do what pigs do best. Run wild. Stir up a little chaos. And remind everyone, if you come storming into someone's life uninvited, you'd better be ready for the mud.